Elliot Mason had always loved the quiet before sunrise. In the stillness of their leafy Connecticut suburb, before the barking dogs and leaf blowers and neighborly waves, he found his small corner of peace. The rest of the house, the one he'd helped paint and fix and fill with life, was still. Only the distant tick of the kitchen clock and the soft pulse of the refrigerator hinted that time was moving at all. He wrapped his hands around a steaming mug of coffee and watched the blue-gray morning through the bay window. The lawn was silvered with dew. Elliot liked to think these early hours were his reward for all the hustle, a private intermission before the world claimed him as father, manager, handyman, or whatever else the day required. Upstairs, his wife Lauren was still asleep, tangled in linen and her own dreams. Their daughters, Maddie and Claire, occupied the two corners of the second floor, likely sprawled over comforters, charging their phones and dreaming up teenage schemes. At 42, Elliot wore his responsibilities like an old jacket worn, but comforting. He never wanted anything extravagant. Small pleasures, a family breakfast, a sarcastic text from one of his girls. The ritual of Sunday pancakes felt like enough. Lauren was the glue. She kept appointments, planned holidays, remembered birthdays, and made sure Maddie and Claire never missed a dance lesson or orthodontist visit. In their holiday cards, they looked like every other perfect family in Meadowbrook Hills, smiling, close, content. But Elliot, more than anyone, knew that perfection was mostly an illusion, a trick of camera angles and good lighting. This morning, as always, he relished the gentle monotony, toast, jam, black coffee, the dog sighing at his feet. He scrolled the news on his phone, made a mental note to check the gutters, and wondered whether Lauren would remember the propane for the weekend's barbecue. But beneath the comfort, a strange tension curled in his chest. He'd felt it for weeks now, a tiny, persistent worry that something was off. Lauren's laughter lately felt forced, her hugs slightly distracted. She was working late more often, her phone always just out of sight. He'd caught glimpses of unread messages and unfamiliar names, nothing explicit, nothing he could point to, but enough to leave him uneasy. Maddie, their older girl, was 16, quick-witted, stubborn, already half out the door toward adulthood. Claire, 14, was the dreamer art projects taped all over her walls, playlists for every mood. They bickered, they hugged, they rolled their eyes at their parents in synchronized harmony. Family life was a carousel of chaos and affection. Still, Elliot couldn't shake the feeling that his ordinary life was like the surface of a lake, glassy, beautiful, but with something churning far beneath. As he rinsed his mug and set it in the sink, Lauren's footsteps echoed down the stairs. She wore a faint smile, one that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Morning, Elle," she said, brushing his shoulder. "Morning. Sleep okay?" he asked, searching for something behind her expression. "Fine," she answered, but her eyes drifted to her phone. "The girls have early choir practice. Can you drive them?" "Of course." Before he could say more, her screen buzzed. She turned away, replying quickly. Elliot felt a pang of disappointment, but hid it behind a practiced smile. Just as the girls tumbled into the kitchen, Claire giggling about something on her phone, Elliot caught a flash of worry on Lauren's face, quick, then gone. Breakfast passed in a swirl of cereal and jokes, the usual Mason morning chaos. But as Maddie grabbed her bag and dashed for the door, Elliot saw Lauren slip her phone into her purse, her thumb hovering over a message she'd just received. He almost asked about it. Instead, he told himself not to be ridiculous. Yet as he watched his family leave for the day, a single, silent question lingered in the empty hallway. What if this ordinary morning was the last one he'd ever know? Elliot's days moved with the precise rhythm of a clock. Every weekday morning, he dropped Maddie and Claire at their schools, a routine he'd cherished ever since the girls were small enough to need booster seats and cartoon lunchboxes. He'd wave goodbye from the driveway, make sure Lauren's car was running, and then drive to the headquarters of Bridgeway Markets, where his role as regional manager kept him glued to endless emails and meetings. The pressure at work was mounting. Staff shortages, supply chain snarls, targets missed by a hair. But Elliot wore the stress the way he wore his wedding ring publicly, with calm and dignity, even as the edges dug into his skin. Lauren, meanwhile, was becoming a ghost in their home. At first, she'd come back late, claiming work emergencies. Then there were networking dinners, charity events, last-minute strategy meetings. She'd text at odd hours, disappear to take calls in the backyard, and return with her eyes shining with a kind of nervous energy. Elliot tried to ignore the cold dinners, the one-sided conversations at the kitchen table, the way she always seemed to be looking past him instead of at him. One evening, as twilight stretched over the neighborhood, Elliot stood at the sink rinsing out mugs. From the window, he saw Lauren outside, phone pressed to her ear, pacing beneath the porch light. Her voice was low, urgent. The breeze caught a snippet. "I can't talk now. No, he's inside." Elliot's heart hammered. He watched her face in the half-shadow, saw the flash of something, fear or excitement. He couldn't tell. When Lauren came back in, she found Maddie slumped at the kitchen island, flipping through homework but mostly scrolling her phone. Maddie looked up, her expression sharp. "Mom, you're never home anymore. Did you get promoted or something?" Lauren forced a laugh and ruffled her daughter's hair. "Just busy, sweetie. Adult stuff." Later, as Elliot helped Claire hang her soccer jersey to dry, Maddie cornered him in the hallway. Her voice was a whisper. "Dad, is Mom okay? She's weird lately? Is she mad at you?" Elliot knelt, meeting Maddie's worried eyes. "She's just under a lot of stress, kiddo. Grown-ups get like that sometimes." But even as he said it, he didn't believe it himself. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Elliot couldn't sleep. He scrolled through social media, checked his emails, then, almost on instinct, picked up Lauren's phone from the charger where she'd left it in the kitchen. The screen was locked, but one calendar notification glowed. Dinner, 8 p.m., JW. He stared at the initials, mind racing. He set the phone down, suddenly ashamed. The house was silent, but in his chest, a storm was building, a rush of doubt, suspicion, and a longing for the simple peace of a morning that now felt impossibly far away. Father's Day had always been a small, bright spot for Elliot, a day when Lauren and the girls made an effort, however modest, to let him feel seen. But this year, he woke to an unusual silence. No breakfast smells, no cards, or clumsy singing drifting down the hallway. He sat alone at the table with his coffee, watching sunlight crawl across the tiles, trying to ignore the ache in his chest. He told himself it was no big deal. Maddie and Claire were teenagers now, more interested in group chats and playlists than family rituals. Lauren, if she remembered, was probably just tired. Yet as the hours passed and nobody appeared, not even the dog for company, Elliot felt the weight of the emptiness. Mid-morning, he heard hurried footsteps Lauren's heels, then the girls' sneakers thudding down the stairs. They rushed around the kitchen, barely acknowledging him. Lauren tossed him a distracted morning L, then gathered the girls for what sounded like a last-minute outing. "We're heading out for brunch with the Hansons, okay? Don't wait up," she said, already halfway out the door. Elliot managed to nod, but the words felt sharp. He watched them pull away, Lauren at the wheel, the girls' faces pressed to their phones in the back seat. For the first time, it struck him that their absence hurt more than he'd ever admit. Alone, he wandered the house, pausing at the family photos on the wall. He lingered on the one from a Cape Cod vacation, sunburnt smiles, arms flung around each other, a day he remembered as perfect. The memory now felt fragile, as if it belonged to someone else. He tried to busy himself mowing the lawn, organizing old tools in the garage, but nothing filled the hollow. Around noon, his mother called to wish him Happy Father's Day. Her voice was warm, a lifeline he hadn't known he needed. "Lord and the girls treating you right?" she asked. He lied and said yes, covering the tremor in his voice. By evening, the family still hadn't returned. Elliot reheated leftover lasagna and ate alone, the television flickering in the background. When the front door finally opened, the girls hurried upstairs without a word, and Lauren paused only to remind him about a dentist appointment Maddie had next week. As he washed his plate, Elliot realized what truly stung. It wasn't being forgotten. It was feeling invisible in his own home. That night, lying awake, he wondered if Father's Day would ever mean anything again, or if the real loss was something far deeper and far more permanent. The days that followed Father's Day passed in a gray, uneasy fog. Elliot moved through work and home as if on autopilot, always hyper-aware, scanning for the signs he was missing something vital. Every task felt heavier. Staff meetings blurred together, and even familiar banter with his team at Bridgeway Markets couldn't chase away the dull ache inside. At home, the ritual chaos of family life seemed hollowed out. Dinner was often reheated leftovers and half-hearted conversation. Lauren's absences quickly shifted from rare to routine. Some nights she slipped in well after midnight, with only vague excuses about traffic or some new emergency at work. Other times, she would return home, still dressed for a business dinner, her hair perfect, but her smile tight and eyes glassy. More and more, she took calls outside, her silhouette lit by the porch light, voice lowered so no one could overhear. Elliot noticed the details and tried to tell himself not to be paranoid. Yet every small change, a new lock screen on Lauren's phone, the sudden appearance of an unfamiliar men's cologne in the laundry, receipts from places he didn't recognize. Her laughter ringing brittle added another brick to the growing wall between them. She started guarding her phone with an intensity that was almost theatrical, snatching it up the moment it buzzed, setting it face down on the counter, never letting it out of her sight. One Saturday, as Elliot folded laundry in the den, Lauren's phone began to vibrate again and again on the coffee table. He saw the screen flash a name he didn't recognize. JW. The same initials he'd seen in that dinner calendar notification days earlier. He stared at the phone, heart pounding, mind arguing with itself. He'd never been the jealous type, and snooping felt like a betrayal in itself, but something inside him was screaming that he needed to know. Before he could reach for the device, Lauren swept into the room, eyes going straight to the phone. She snatched it up, her fingers white around the case, and tucked it quickly into her bag. Their eyes met, tension thick in the space between them. "Is everything okay?" Elliot managed to ask, voice as steady as he could make it. "Just work," Lauren replied, but her tone was brittle, final. Without another word, she walked out, the sound of her heels sharp on the hardwood floors. After she left, Elliot wandered the silent house, unable to shake a sense of being outnumbered by secrets. The once warm and chaotic home now felt too large, filled with unanswered questions. Even the girls noticed the change. Maddie was quieter, her usual confidence replaced by sidelong glances and worried sighs. Claire spent more time in her room, sketching endlessly or retreating into headphones. That night, while Elliot sat alone in his study, Maddie knocked and slipped inside. She hesitated, shifting from foot to foot, then spoke, in a voice so soft it barely carried. "Dad, are you and Mom okay? You both seem different." Elliot tried to reassure her, to promise that everything was fine, and that grown-ups just got stressed sometimes. But the words caught in his throat. He looked into Maddie's anxious face and realized he couldn't lie not to her. "I'm not sure, Maddie. I really don't know anymore." After Maddie left, Elliot sat at his desk for a long time, staring at the glow of his computer screen, lost in looping worries. The sense of control he'd always prized was gone. That night, alone in bed, sleep evaded him. The house, once his haven, felt full of shadows and secrets. For the first time, Elliot allowed himself to wonder if the truth, whatever it was, might be worse than all his fears. He lay awake for hours, questioning every conversation, every laugh, every distant glance, haunted by the growing certainty that the life he'd worked so hard to build was quietly unraveling beneath him. Elliot sat in his parked car outside the house, hands gripping the steering wheel, breath fogging the windshield. The days of uncertainty had sharpened into a single, undeniable point, a text message he'd seen over Lauren's shoulder, a hotel reservation under her name, and the late-night laughter on the porch she thought he couldn't hear. Each clue had been a puzzle piece he refused to fit together, but now the picture was clear. The house was dark, except for a thin band of light in the upstairs window. Elliot entered quietly, keys jangling, his heart pounding so loudly he feared it would wake the neighbors. Lauren was sitting at the kitchen table, face illuminated by her phone. She didn't look up as he stepped inside. "We need to talk," Elliot said, voice rougher than he intended. Lauren's thumb hovered over her screen. For a moment, she looked impossibly tired, younger and older at once. "About what?" she replied, almost bored. "About JW. About the nights you disappear. About the lies." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Lauren's mask slipped. For the first time, she didn't try to deny or dismiss. Instead, she just stared at him, face pale, lips pressed tight. "You want honesty? Fine. I met someone. I needed something different. You were always there, always safe, always the same. I felt invisible. He made me feel alive again." Elliot stood frozen, every muscle tight, his whole world contracting to a pinpoint of pain. "So what am I supposed to do with that, Lauren? Pretend it never happened? Share you? Be grateful for the leftovers?" "I don't want to lie anymore," Lauren whispered, eyes shining, "but I can't go back." They sat in silence, the old clock ticking, years of shared history trembling between them. In that moment, Elliot knew the marriage was over more than any lawyer or paper could say. He slept on the couch that night, staring at the ceiling, haunted by memories of Sunday mornings and the warmth that used to fill their home. He didn't cry, not yet. Anger burned through the shock. Tomorrow, he'd call an attorney. Tonight, he let the grief begin. In the stillness, Elliot realized what betrayal really meant. Not just the end of trust, but the unraveling of every ordinary day he'd once taken for granted. For days after Lauren's confession, Elliot moved through life in a trance, broken sleep, stale coffee, his mind looping the same arguments and regrets. But pain had a way of hardening into resolve. By midweek, he was determined to protect his daughters from the fallout. He would not let them become collateral damage, no matter how wounded he felt. Lauren, however, seemed to have made her choice. She packed a suitcase and moved into the guest room, wordlessly dividing her clothes and toiletries. Conversation dwindled to practicalities, school schedules, bills, who would handle the groceries. At dinner, silence settled over the table like a shroud, punctuated only by Maddie's nervous chatter and Claire's anxious glances. Elliot watched his girls closely, his heart aching at their confusion and hurt. Late one night, Elliot sat in his study, laptop open, reading legal guides on divorce. He made notes about local attorneys, printed checklists, and scribbled reminders. Stay calm. Be fair. Prioritize the girls. He researched how to protect his assets but refused to consider anything that would make things harder for Lauren than necessary. It wasn't revenge he wanted, just dignity, a clean break, and a chance to remain a real father. The next day, Maddie came home early from school, dropping her backpack by the door. She found Elliot in the kitchen, staring out the window. "Dad, are you and Mom getting divorced?" Her voice shook, both angry and desperate. Elliot hesitated. "We're trying to figure things out, but sometimes grown-ups can't fix everything. I love you and Claire more than anything, Maddie. That won't change." "But Mom said you don't love her anymore. She told Claire you're making her move out. She cried all night." Elliot felt the words like a slap. Anger flared, but he forced himself to stay steady. He knelt in front of Maddie. "That isn't true. Things are complicated, but no one's turning their back on you or your sister, I promise." That evening, after another tense dinner, Elliot overheard Lauren's hushed conversation with Claire behind closed doors. Fragments drifted out. "Your dad's not the same anymore. He wants this." The next morning, Elliot found Claire at the kitchen table, eyes red from crying. He wrapped his arms around her, whispering reassurances until her breathing slowed. In that moment, he made a decision. He would fight for his daughter's trust, for their right to love both parents without guilt or manipulation. Whatever bitterness remained between him and Lauren, it would not poison his bond with Maddie and Claire. As the sun rose, Elliot dialed the first lawyer on his list. His voice was steady, his purpose clear. This battle wouldn't be about winning or losing. It would be about drawing lines in the sand and standing tall on the right side of them. The first meeting with the divorce attorney was colder than Elliot expected. He sat on the opposite side of a polished oak desk, a pen poised above a notepad that remained mostly blank. The attorney spoke in measured tones about custody arrangements, equitable splits, and the importance of minimizing emotional harm. Every word felt like another nail in the coffin of his old life. Elliot tried to focus on facts, income, assets, the girls' routines, but the lawyer's questions about visitation made the reality hit home. There would be 2 houses now, 2 bedrooms for Maddie and Claire, and holidays spent shuttling between parents. The ache in his chest grew sharper. Back home, tension lingered in the air. Lauren moved efficiently through the house, discussing legal fairness while pushing for primary custody. "It just makes sense," she argued. "You're always working. They need stability." Elliot bit back his frustration, determined not to turn the girls into prizes in a bitter contest. He began rearranging his life, shifting meetings, requesting fewer travel days, learning to cook meals Maddie actually liked. Each change was a small act of resistance, proof he could still be present, still matter. Yet no matter what he did, Maddie and Claire were caught in the middle, forced to process their parents' pain while enduring the rumors and whispers at school. One rainy afternoon, Claire came home early, cheeks blotchy and eyes swollen. Elliot found her curled on the couch, clutching her phone. "Why does everyone at school know about Mom?" she sobbed. "They say she has a boyfriend. They say you're moving away. I just want everything to go back." He wrapped her in a hug, letting her cry, wishing he could promise her the world wouldn't change. "I'm not going anywhere," he whispered. "And you don't have to choose between us. I'm always your dad." That night, Elliot sat at the dining room table, sorting through papers by lamplight. He realized he couldn't fix the past or rebuild the family as it was, but he could build something new, however imperfect. Home would be wherever his daughters felt safe, loved, and able to be themselves. As thunder rolled outside, Elliot made himself a silent vow. Whatever the cost, he would give his girls a place to belong. The first weeks of shared custody were a study in contrasts. On Mondays and Wednesdays, Elliot woke to a house filled with laughter and the echo of Maddie and Claire arguing over breakfast cereal. By Thursday night, the rooms felt too large, the quiet unsettling. He learned to dread the empty calendar days marked Lauren's. He worked hard to make his time matter. Weekend pancake stacks, family movie marathons, long walks with the dog through autumn leaves. Some nights, the girls would curl up beside him on the couch, old routines creeping back in. But Elliot knew everything had changed. Claire clung to him, shadowing his every move. Maddie, older and more guarded, kept her headphones on, disappearing into music and silence. Lauren called often, negotiating trade-offs and last-minute schedule changes. One Friday, she asked Elliot to keep the girls an extra night. "Work crisis," she explained. He agreed, trying to hide the note of relief in his voice. For a moment, the old family rhythm returned: takeout pizza, a silly board game, Claire falling asleep mid-laugh. Watching them, Elliot realized that even if the family was broken, the love remained. But the cracks were always there. At dinner, Maddie would stare at her phone, eyes clouded, and Claire would ask when Mom was coming back. The sense of temporary never quite faded. One evening, as they cleared the table, Maddie spoke up, her voice brittle. "Dad, is it true Mom has a boyfriend?" The question landed between them like a stone. Elliot's heart pounded. He wanted to shield his daughters from pain, to protect Lauren's dignity. But looking into Maddie's searching eyes, he understood what mattered most now. "Maddie, your mom and I both still love you and Claire. Grown-ups make mistakes, and sometimes they need new beginnings. That's all I can say. But nothing changes how much we love you." Maddie nodded slowly, tears brimming but unshed. Claire slipped her hand into Elliot's prime. For the first time, Elliot let himself believe that honesty, even when it hurt, was the only real gift he could give his girls. As the night settled in, he promised himself he would always be that safe place for them, no matter what else life took away. Elliot devoted himself to making the new house a home. He painted the living room a warm shade of green, let Claire choose wild sunflower curtains, and hosted Saturday afternoons filled with the chaos of laughter, pizza boxes, and teenagers sprawled on the floor with streaming movies and board games. For Claire, these small rituals worked. She giggled more, invited friends, and even convinced Elliot to dance in the kitchen. But Maddie kept her distance. She answered in shrugs, hid behind her phone, and when asked about school, only muttered that everything's fine. Elliot saw the old spark in her fade, replaced by wary silences. He wanted to reach her, but every attempt was met with a wall he couldn't climb. Then, one rainy Thursday, a call from the school shattered the fragile calm. Maddie had a rough day, the guidance counselor explained. She got into an argument with some classmates. She's upset and could use a familiar face. Elliot's heart clenched. He arrived to find Maddie in the office, cheeks streaked with tears, arms folded tight across her chest. On the drive home, Elliot didn't push, just let the radio fill the silence. Finally, Maddie spoke, her voice trembling. "They said I'm weird because my parents are divorced, that I'm lying when I say we're still a family." Elliot's grip tightened on the steering wheel. He wanted to fix it all, but there was nothing to fix. "Maddie, I wish I could make them understand. But I do know that nothing about our family is broken because people say so. We're different now, but we're still us." They pulled into the driveway, but neither moved. Maddie looked at her father, eyes searching. "Are you happy, Dad? Or are you just pretending for me and Claire?" The question cut deeper than Elliot expected. He realized he'd been hiding behind routines and smiles, afraid to admit his own uncertainty. "I'm trying. Some days are better than others, but I want this to be a real home for you and Claire, not just a place we sleep. I promise I'm not giving up." Maddie wiped her eyes and leaned against him. In the small space of the parked car, father and daughter found comfort in their shared vulnerability. They sat for a long time, hands linked, making an unspoken promise to try together to turn this fragile, imperfect house into something that truly felt like home. Saturday, sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows as Maddie bustled around the house, making sure the living room was ready for her friends. It was the first time since the divorce that she had wanted company. Elliot watched her with quiet pride. Claire bounced from room to room, excitement contagious, and for a moment, the house felt almost normal. Laughter and music spilled into every corner, chasing away the long shadow of recent months. When the girls left for Lauren's that evening, the silence pressed in. Elliot walked through the empty house, dishes still warm from dinner. The echo of giggles lingering in the air. The emptiness was sharper than before, but not hopeless. He called an old friend from college, a single dad himself, who invited him to join a support group at the local community center. That first meeting, Elliot listened more than he spoke, surprised at the raw honesty in the room. Men swapped stories of missed birthdays, awkward dinners, shared custody, and learning to forgive themselves. For the first time, Elliot felt understood. Later that week, Lauren sent a text. "Let's try to keep things peaceful for the girls." Elliot stared at the message, thumb hovering. He finally replied, "I agree. They come first. Always." He meant it but kept his distance, unwilling to blur the lines that hard-won healing required. One night as he tucked Claire into bed, she blurted out, "Mom cries sometimes when we're not there. I heard her." Elliot felt the familiar ache return, but this time something shifted. He saw Lauren not as the villain of his pain, but as another parent, wounded and lost, trying to do her best. Lying awake afterward, Elliot replayed Claire's words. The house creaked and settled around him. But the old bitterness was gone, replaced by something softer. He made a choice, To forgive Lauren not for her sake, but for his own and for his daughter's. In the hush of midnight, Elliot understood that true healing would take time, but the first step was letting go. As dawn crept in, he felt lighter, ready to begin again. A quiet peace settled over Elliot's life in unexpected ways. He found comfort in the early hours, sipping coffee on the balcony, watching the neighborhood come alive as dawn painted the sky. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like he was waiting for something to go wrong. He simply breathed, present in the gentle hush of morning. Saturday brought the girls back, and the kitchen filled with the sweet chaos of homemade pancakes. As batter sizzled on the griddle, Claire perched on a stool and asked, "Dad, do you think you'll ever fall in love again?" Maddie, quick with her wit, added, "Yeah, Dad. Who's your next crush?" Elliot laughed, flipping a pancake, feeling the sting of old sadness, replaced by shy hope. "Maybe someday," he said, "but I'm not in a hurry. You two are enough for me right now." Still, curiosity nudged at him. That evening, after the girls had gone to bed, Elliot downloaded a dating app for the first time. He browsed profiles, crafted a hesitant bio, and set up a few awkward conversations. The thought of meeting someone new was daunting, but the anxiety was different now, less about fear, more about possibility. A week later, while walking the dog in the park, Elliot spotted a woman sitting on a bench, her golden retriever sprawled at her feet. Their dogs tugged at their leashes, eager to say hello, and the owners couldn't help but smile at each other's predicament. "Hi, I'm Grace," she said, her voice warm and steady. "This troublemaker's name is Max. He's always dragging me into conversations." Elliot grinned. "I'm Elliot, and that's Scout. He's a born matchmaker." They walked the path together, talking easily about dogs, parenting, the strange beauty of starting over. Grace shared that she too was navigating life as a single parent, balancing work and family, loneliness and hope. By the time they parted ways, Elliot realized his heart no longer felt heavy. He didn't know what the future would hold, but as he watched Grace and Max disappear down the path, he was sure of one thing. He was finally ready to welcome whatever came next. This time, he would take it slow, savoring every fragile, hopeful step into the unknown. The weeks unfolded in a gentle rhythm. Elliot and Grace fell easily into a friendship that felt both new and reassuringly simple. Most afternoons they met at the park with their dogs, trading stories of shared parenthood and hard-won wisdom. Sometimes they cooked together, laughter filling Elliot's kitchen as Grace's daughter, Sophie, tried to teach Claire and Maddie to bake scones. Walls gradually lowered, and what began as caution grew into a real connection among all of them. The girls, initially wary, soon warmed to Grace's easy humor and honest warmth. Maddie, still the skeptic, found herself lingering after dinner, listening as Grace recounted embarrassing moments from her own childhood. Claire adored Sophie, and the four children became a fixture at the playground, their laughter chasing away the last traces of loneliness from Elliot's home. One Sunday, Grace invited them on a picnic beneath the blooming maples. As sunlight danced through the leaves, Elliot and Grace sat apart from the children, watching them tumble through the grass. Grace spoke quietly. "Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever get this right. Loving someone new and not messing it up." Elliot nodded. "I know that fear. Most days I'm still patching over old wounds. The thought of trying again is a little terrifying." There was a long, comfortable silence. Then Grace squeezed his hand, and for the first time, Elliot didn't flinch from the possibility of something more. But later, as the group packed up, Maddie overheard a quiet conversation between the adults. She caught Elliot saying, "Grace, I care about you, but I'm not sure I'm ready for a serious relationship." "Not yet. The girls come first." Maddie's chest tightened. That night, she struggled to sleep, worrying that her father would miss out on happiness if he waited too long, or that their little family would never truly move forward. Elliot, unaware of his daughter's turmoil, sat by his bedroom window, thinking about Grace, about the future, about his daughters. He realized that the most important thing wasn't racing toward a new love, but holding steady, building trust, and keeping his girls safe in this uncertain new chapter. Whatever happened next, he was determined to lead with honesty and to show Maddie and Claire that change, though painful, could also make space for new joy. The summer evening air was heavy with the scent of grass and promise. Elliot noticed Maddie growing more restless, hovering at the edges of the living room, eyes darting between her father and his phone whenever Grace's name appeared. Claire, usually open and chatty, seemed to sense her sister's anxiety and grew quieter, seeking comfort in Elliot's presence. One night, while cleaning up after dinner, Maddie cornered Elliot by the sink. She looked him straight in the eye. "Dad, are you afraid of loving someone again? Or are you just afraid of us getting hurt?" Elliot dried his hands and sat beside her at the table. He hesitated, then decided there was no use hiding from the truth. "Both, Maddie. I'm scared of making mistakes, of letting someone into our lives too soon. But I promise, you and Claire will always come first. Always." Maddie's eyes filled with tears. And before Elliot could react, Claire came rushing from the hallway, flinging her arms around them both. "Don't be sad, Daddy. We're still a family, just a different kind." The three of them sat there in the soft kitchen light, letting the pain and hope flow freely at last. For the first time since the divorce, Elliot felt the real weight of their loss and the fragile, blooming hope that things might, in time, be okay. That night, after the girls had gone to bed, Elliot's phone buzzed with a message from Grace. "Sophie wants to go hiking this weekend. Would you and the girls like to join us?" Elliot looked at the sleeping house, at the faces of his daughters and family photos, and felt a strange, courageous peace. He replied, "We'd love to." As dawn crept over the rooftops, Elliot knew that opening his heart wasn't just for himself, but for Maddie and Claire too. The past would always be part of them, but together they could nurture new happiness one careful step at a time. The sun rose on Saturday with the promise of adventure. Elliot was up early, packing sandwiches, water bottles, and spare jackets into an old hiking backpack. Maddie, dragging her feet, claimed she wasn't a morning person, while Claire bounced around the kitchen, already excited to see Sophie. When Grace and her daughter arrived, the girls exchanged shy hellos, but Claire quickly led Sophie to see the garden, leaving Maddie quietly watching from the porch. The trailhead was cool and shaded. The group set off, shoes crunching on gravel, the city slowly fading behind them. At first, conversation was awkward, broken only by Claire and Sophie's laughter. Maddie walked a few steps behind, lost in thought, but as the path climbed and the air grew thinner, a gentle camaraderie settled in. Grace fell into step beside Elliot. "It's harder than I thought starting over," she admitted softly. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm enough for Sophie, or if I'm just making it up as I go." Elliot smiled in understanding. "I feel the same. There's this pressure to be perfect for them, but I think all they really want is for us to try." Halfway up, the rocks became slick from a recent rain. Maddie, distracted, slipped on a mossy patch. In an instant, Grace was at her side, steadying her gently, murmuring reassurance. Maddie looked at Grace, a flicker of surprise and gratitude in her eyes. From that moment, the distance between them seemed to shrink. The last stretch of the climb was filled with stories and shared snacks, the group moving together more easily. At the summit, the view stretched wide and blue, sunlight spilling over treetops. While everyone caught their breath, Maddie pulled out her phone. "Let's get a picture," she said, surprising everyone. She called, "Grace, will you be in it too? And Sophie?" They bunched together in the bright mountain air. Maddie hesitated just a moment, then handed Grace her water bottle, smiling shyly. "Thank you for helping." It was the first time she'd spoken to Grace with real affection, and Elliot felt a knot inside him loosen. Later, as they descended, Elliot walked with Maddie, who leaned her head on his shoulder. "I like her, Dad," she whispered. "I think she's good for us." Elliot looked at the path winding ahead, sunlight dappling through the trees, and knew that happiness was found not in grand gestures, but in these quiet, hard-won moments of connection. Home, he realized, was simply where their hearts chose to belong together, forging a future one step at a time. A month after their mountain hike, Elliot marveled at how easily their lives had intertwined. Weeknights were a joyful mess, pizza boxes and homework spread across the kitchen table. Laughter echoing as Claire and Sophie chased Scout and Max around the backyard. Grace and Elliot shared quiet glances over mugs of tea, the ease between them growing with every shared story and solved problem. Their romance, though still young, felt rooted in something honest, built not on need, but mutual respect and a gentle, persistent hope. The girls blended into a new kind of family. Maddie, who had once drawn invisible lines around her heart, now texted Sophie memes and confided secrets. Claire taught Max and Scout tricks, and often declared she wanted a sleepover every weekend. The line between two households blurred, and home became wherever they all gathered together. One afternoon, Maddie sat at her desk and began a school essay titled, "My Second Home." Her pen hesitated, then wrote, "Family means the people who never give up on you. Sometimes, they're not who you expect, but you know them by the way they make you feel safe." As she finished, Maddie looked out her window and smiled at the sight of Elliot and Grace planting flowers, their laughter mingling in the breeze. That weekend, Claire handed Elliot a homemade card. On the front, in bright colors, "Thank you, Dad, for never giving up on us." Inside, a simple note, "This is our new happy." Elliot held the card to his heart, grateful for the hard path that led them here. On a Sunday evening, Lauren knocked on the door, nervous but determined. She brought dessert and a truce, joining them for dinner for the first time. The meal was filled with gentle conversation and genuine warmth. Lauren raised a glass. For the kids, and for new beginnings. The girls beamed, passing stories back and forth. And even Grace smiled, accepting Lauren's gesture with quiet grace. Later, Elliot lingered in the doorway, watching the bustle of their blended family. The old pain had softened, replaced by something braver, a happiness not born of forgetting the past, but from choosing to build something new together. As laughter and light spilled through the house, Elliot knew, finally, that home wasn't what he'd lost. It was everything they'd made, every ordinary, extraordinary day from this moment forward.